Hello and welcome all. I want to talk to you today about Microsoft Fabric deployment patterns. And I want to show you that you've got all these different SKUs you can do with Fabric. And let's just go back to this whiteboard here. I want to show you something here. So we've got different patterns we can do with Microsoft Fabric. And you may be deciding that you want to use Microsoft Fabric for your company and you don't know what to use. So we've got four patterns here. The monolithic deployment, which is sort of just one tenant, one capacity, one workspace, going up to one capacity with multiple workspaces, then multiple capacities, and then multiple tenants. So let's talk about the first one, which is a monolithic deployment. And in this one, remember that you're going to have a single region because every Azure Fabric capacity is tied to a particular region. If you look at this one, I've built one here. You can see that I built a Fabric here, and it's actually in the location UK South. And I built another one in the US. Over here, you'll see West US 3. And the scale, here's an F8, this one here. And I think the other one was an F2 or an F4, F2. So the different sizes that you get are F2, F4, F8, F16. And you can see the prices here, $300, $600, all the way up to a staggering $313,000 a month, which is crazy. And really mad. But what's nice about the FSKU is you can pause it. So you can pause and resume capacity. As compared to the PSKUs, there's a few differences. As you can see, Copilot's available everywhere. Manage private endpoints is quite interesting. You can use that on FSKUs, on any FSKU. On-demand resizing, Power BI Autoscale is only available on the PSKUs, which is the Power BI Premium. So that's view Power BI items with a free Fabric license. Now, of course, with PSKUs, you can do that. With an F64 or higher, you can do that with Microsoft Fabric capacity, which is $9,000 a month. So if you've got the money for that, then go for it. Now, let's get back to our pattern designs. This one, you're going to have a single capacity and a single tenant. Now, your capacity is tied to a single region, and you're going to have a single workspace. Now, within a single workspace, you're going to have multiple people over here, and these people are going to create multiple items. Okay, you can have times 5 lake houses and times 10 this and times 25 reports and so on. So it doesn't really, there's no limit as to the number of items you can have in here, all underpinned by the one lake. Now, remember that in this scenario, you're probably not going to worry about how quick things run because you're going to go one capacity. Unless you really scale that up to like an F64 and above, you wouldn't want to go to what was the other one? F2048. It's just crazy. But in this way, every single one of these items are going to be using that one capacity. So in this case, this might be for a trial for your company. Maybe you want to implement this onto one department or whatever it may be. But that's the scenario for monolithic deployment, which is really easy to maintain, of course, because you've got one workspace and everything's on that workspace. So it's very simple, but it's also quite limited at the same time. So let's go on to pattern number 2. Pattern number 2, you're going to have one tenant, which will be tied to your organizational tenant. And then you're going to have one capacity, but this time you're going to have multiple workspaces. It's quite a common design, this. In this case, you might have workspaces for different things. Maybe you got your sales department here. Maybe you got your HR department here. Different things, right? So, and also there's the idea that you might want to do deployment pipelines. I've got a video about deployment pipelines. And deployment pipelines, the idea, I'll just draw this out for you, is that you might have a workspace here. And you might say this is like for development. And you might have another workspace here. This might be for testing. Maybe you want to, allow some people to test this idea of a new report or a new semantic model. And then you've got another workspace here, 2, 1. That might be sort of production stuff that do not touch this unless, maybe certain people are only allowed to touch this one because it's sort of business critical. Maybe you've got reports running from here. Or you've got some kind of maybe data scientists are looking at some lake house here that can't be messed with. So in this case, having these 3 different workspaces is advantageous, and you could use deployment pipelines to move data from one into the other like that. So that's the advantage of using deployment pipelines. They also talk about how you can use the medallion architecture for having different workspaces, have the bronze in one workspace, the silver in another, and the gold in another workspace. I'm not a huge fan of that. What I'd rather do is have my bronze, silver, and gold within a lake house, because that's the lake house architecture. If you think about this idea of bronze, silver, and gold, which might, or in other ways of saying it, could be conformed, enriched, curated. I would rather have that on a single lake house, and that lake house could be residing in, for example, my dev workspace, and then I could, if you think about this, could be tied into that dev workspace, and then you could promote that. So you'd have multiple instances of your medallion architecture in your different environment, into different workspaces. I like to call these environments because that's what traditionally they would be. So you can think of these workspaces as different environments, but all within the same fabric capacity in fabric tenant. So that's the advantage of having different workspaces. So you can use them to your heart's content of how you want to use them. Maybe they're different departments in your organization. Maybe they're different places like playgrounds. This could be like instead of being dev, it could be R&D playground or whatever. So it's just a way of separating different interests and different concerns within your business to have these different workspaces. So pattern number 3, moving on to that. At this stage, you might say, all right, this region is going to be UK South. That's where I'm from. And maybe you want some data for another branch of your, I think we've got some in UAE, I'm not sure, but we've got some data centers in United Arab Emirates or in those Middle East, for example, and saying, well, our data must stay there and it can't come out of there. So therefore, you'd have a capacity that is deployed from that area and another capacity that's deployed from there. Maybe you've got multiple businesses. Maybe, but this is business A, and this is business B. Maybe there's a takeover of a business and that already had its own, wing, and you didn't want to combine the 2 data together. There's just different ways to think about it. Actually, number 4 might work well with that, where you've got multiple tenants. So in that case, you bought a company and you want to keep the tenant. But in this case, it might be that you want multiple regions. And in this scenario, you could have, of course, you could have, multiple times n here workspace. It doesn't have to be just one workspace. But this will be all underpinned, because you've got one tenant here, all underpinned by one lake. But you'll have multiple capacities, and capacity A will be using that, and that workspace will use it, and that workspace B will use it. So this is quite a nice design. It allows you to separate these concerns, and you can also use domains within Fabric, which are quite cool as well, to say, all right, this domain is for sales, and this domain is for department A and department B, whatever it is, and then you can assign those Fabric capacities as well to your domains. But this is pattern number 3, which is multiple workspaces backed by separate capacities. And you could also say maybe Fabric capacity A is for everything that is testing and R&D, whereas for Fabric capacity B, for example, could be something that is production. So you could imagine that we want this one to be really strong. The capacity is going to be really strong, and this is for our production workloads. And we want stuff to get done quickly here, and this shouldn't be messed with. And all business critical stuff is going to happen on this capacity. So that could be another example of why you want different capacities. So the reasons are, number 1, regions. So you might want your data to stay in certain regions. Number 2 could be performance, like we just spoke about. And the other one could be, I don't know, domains. Maybe you want things separated because, they're just different business concerns. Lastly, Multiple fabric tenants. So in this case, I've seen this with some government organizations where, this is production here. And the reason that they might want to do this is because they want it to be highly restricted. For example, this tenant is got certain users only, and users that are existing here will never have access to this. Maybe there's highly sensitive data that's inside of this, inside production, and they don't want people to get into it. So there's reasons that you might want to do multiple tenants. That might not be the only reason. It might be because you've done a business takeover and they've got their own tenant already, or maybe it is just that you want different governance, over this one and different governance over this one. That's one way to think about it. Maybe you want to keep this one more simple, with no, let's just say, had no private networking, and maybe this one did have private networking. But it's not to say you can't mix private and non-private in the same tenant, but maybe you just wanted different ways of working in these different tenants, and one was much more locked down than the other. And in these tenants, you can obviously do all the different designs we spoke about before, which is having multiple capacities, multiple workspaces, and such. Obviously, as you go into pattern number 4, this has got a lot of admin, a lot of you have to look after the stuff. You're going to have quite a big team to. I won't say a big team, but it's going to be a lot to manage, and all these different capacities and all these different tenants. So it's a bit more of an admin overhead, an admin pain. I'd say pattern number 3 is probably very common. I've seen it quite a lot in our deployments. So you're going to have your different capacities for your different things, and there's different reasons why you might want it. Pattern 2 is also quite common, where you've got one capacity which is serving all your workspaces. This might be where you're a bit more budget constrained over here, whereas pattern number 3, you might be less budget constrained, or might have a bigger budget for this. So maybe pattern number 2 might be, the business is just trying it out, seeing what Fabric can do for them. And pattern number 3 is like, we fully adopted this now. We've been using it for some years, although Fabric hasn't been around that many years. But it's something that the company's using, and we've adopted it, and we're big into the journey now, and we're going for this. So those are the 4 different patterns for Microsoft deployments for Fabric. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks a lot for listening.